Hello everybody. I hope you all had a very good Christmas. Sorry I haven't posted any videos lately. I've currently been a little bit sick. I had the flu. Luckily it's not corona. So if I bark at you guys a bit, I'm sorry. Today we're going to start a new series. This is going to be chess improvement, and we're going to look at ways you can improve your game drastically. Now, for today we're going to do tactics. Tactics is the biggest thing that you can do to improve your game the fastest. What we're going to do is we're going to do some puzzles on Puzzle Rush on chess.com. This is the survival one. I think the aim is to do as many puzzles in a day as you can, but obviously not too much. So like a good starting point would be to try and average about 30 chess puzzles a day, and you try and do that for at least a month. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it's actually a lot of fun because tactics are fun. I like the setup that chess.com has on their website, because they start off with easy puzzles and it progressively gets harder and harder. We'll see how bad or how good I do. I'll try and do it a little bit slowly so that you guys can pause in between to try and figure out yourselves, and I'll also try and explain things. Alright, so let's start with the first one. Okay, so it's white to move. Alright, now notice the key factors here is that this king's back rank is really weak, so the piece that could go down is this rook down there. It would be check. The king can't move to the square because of the bishop, and nothing can block, so this must be the move. Checkmate in one. Okay, let's have a look here. Black to move. This looks like another back rank problem. Let's have a look. If I move a rook down, the only piece that could protect is the knight like that, but then I can just capture with the rook. Alright, so check. Mate. Alright, this is still a back rank idea, but it's just on this side of the board. Alright, so the rook can just move here. Checkmate. Again, a back rank problem. So the rook moves down. Check. Only move is rook there, and then we can capture. Checkmate. Okay, another back rank one. Alright, so here the idea is remove one of the defenders. So this guy's a defender, so we can go check with the queen there. The rook would have to capture, and then this rook takes. Checkmate, and you can't block. Alright, so now we've got a nice little endgame one. Alright, so the whole thing with endgames is you always want to promote your pawn. Alright, so let's see what's going on here. If I push this pawn, the king can go after it, but he's too slow. Alright, now in endgames, when you've got a passed pawn, you've got a square. It goes like this. Alright, so basically how you create the square is you take the pawn, the square from the pawn, you take it to the top there and you bring it down. So you got your square, and if the king can move into the square, then you'll be able to catch the pawn. If he can't, then this pawn will be able to outrun the king. But now we also need to notice this pawn of whites is also moving down really quickly. It's also got 3 squares. So let's just quickly work this out. So pawn there, pawn there, pawn there, pawn there, and then he promotes with check. But luckily for me, I just missed that it was white to move and not black to move. Okay, so I can just simply move there. This really changes things. Overanalyzing this. Alright, so the pawn's in the way, the king's in the way of the pawn, so I can simply push my pawn very easily. My pawn is definitely going to get there faster. Get my queen, and thank you very much. Alright, let's see what's going on here. Okay, now here we've got a nice little tactic known as a discovered attack. Alright, this king moved over here. This allows me the option to move my knight to g4, checking the white king. And when I check the white king with this move, his queen is in danger from my queen. And he's unable to capture my knight on the square with his queen because my bishop's defending. So let's have a look. And thanks for the queen. Okay, that was known as a discovered attack. Alright, now here white's got a rook and we've only got a knight, which is totally unfair, except we've got a passed pawn that's probably going to promote. It's 2 squares away. The rook can't come down to attack it, so you'll have to come from behind. But if he does, we can just block with the knight, so we can just simply push the pawn. And queen. Alright, let's have a look here. Now in this one, notice the king and the rook are on the same line, and this little guy is not defended. So we've got a tactic known as a skewer. This rook can move down, checking the king. The king would have to move somewhere. Doesn't really matter. And then the rook would capture that rook. Okay. Now this one looked tricky for about a second, but it's not really. Alright, now notice black moved his rook down here. Okay. Now when he moved down there, he's put this rook on the square. Now we've got the option of moving our bishop here, attacking the rook, and threatening this pawn on h7. So that's a double attack. Okay, let's see if this is right. Okay, so he stops the check, because otherwise the queen comes down to check, and then we can capture the rook. Alright, this looks maybe like a mate in 2. Let's see. Check. Alright, so this is a checkmate in 2. This is a very common pattern. We start off by moving a queen here, check. King has to move there, and then we checkmate on the square. Okay, so now black's just moved here. He's threatening our queen, he's threatening our bishop. Let's see, what can we do? First move that jumps to mind is knight takes knight. Then pawn takes knight. Haha, okay. Alright, so oops. Alright, so basically I'd like to play bishop takes knight, because there's 2 pieces attacking this knight. Then he'd have to recapture, and then the queen can capture. But if I play bishop takes knight, he's got an in-between move of knight takes queen. Check, winning my queen, attacking my king. My king would have to move, and then he can take, and not only have I not won a piece, he's actually won my queen. So before I can take here, I have to take here. So knight takes, pawn takes, and now I can play this move. And then I've won a piece. Okay, let's see here. Alright, I think he's just taken a piece over here. Now, in positions like this, you've got to check very carefully, because a simple move would be just to recapture the piece and then you carry on playing. But black's got an in-between move here where he could capture this bishop, attacking the queen and the rook, in which case if white then captures back with his queen, then we can take the knight and we've won a piece. Well, the queen won't capture, sorry, because the knight would recapture, but we definitely will win a piece there. Thing to be careful of, okay, is that white mustn't have any check moves or things to get out of danger. So the only thing I think to think about is if bishop takes, does white have knight e7? No, he doesn't, because the knight can just recapture, and then we're still threatening the queen and the rook. So I'm definitely going with bishop takes c3, and the queen does take. Can you believe it? Okay, just take the queen. Now he's got check there. Doesn't matter if he wins our rook, because we've won his queen. So the king can just simply move. Only legal square is h8, and another one successfully done. Okay, now whenever you play chess, you always got to watch and see which pieces are not protected. Now notice here, this knight has just moved to b5, it's not protected. And this king is also wide open on this diagonal. So we've got this move, queen b6 check, attacking the knight and attacking the king. If he blocks with any piece other than this knight, then we can just capture the knight. So the only thing you could maybe try is to block the check with his knight, but we've got the queen and the knight protecting that square, so we'll still win a piece. So this is definitely the move. Okay, he's just moved his king, and then we can take the knight. Okay, now our opponent's just played there, attacking our knight. Not very good, because we're currently threatening the bishop. If he then takes, we can take the knight, and then we've won a piece. See if that's correct. Ooh. Okay, let's check. King just moves out the way, and we can just take the knight. Okay, so it's black to move, so my pawn's going this way, and white's pawn is going this way. Okay, so here the problem is this white king is very far away from this, so if we can get these queens off, then black should be able to win this pawn endgame. So I think this is the move. Very good. Alright, now in this position we're attacking the rook, but the king's defending. So now we're going to try and incorporate something known as remove a defender. So by moving this pawn here, attacking the king, if the king takes, he's running away from his rook, and then we'll be able to win the rook. So what black could try after we move this pawn here is move back to keep protecting this rook, but then white can push the pawn yet again, checking the king. Again, if the king takes, we can take the rook, or if the king moves there and we move here, check, and the king moves back down, again protecting his rook, then we can take the rook, king takes, and we've gotten the king away from our queening square, and then we get our pawn 3. Let's see what black plays. Check. Check again. Okay, so he takes the pawn and we win the rook. Move a defender. Okay. Now here black's got a nice material advantage. He's got an extra rook, but white's got some very aggressive pawns here. First move that jumped to mind was pawn there, but then the king just takes. So if we can just protect the square, then he's going to have big problems. So I'm thinking pawn there, followed by pawn there, and queen. Let's go for it. Okay. Now obviously I'm not going to go here, because he's just given away his rook. So we'll just take his rook. Okay. So now he's threatening this pawn. So we can just push, check, and now we need to get the king away from the square. Remember, remove the defender, check, and queen. Thank you very much. Okay, now here notice we're attacking this piece once and it's defended once, but this king is also wide open. So black's got the following idea: plays the queen there, check, attacking the king and attacking the knight. He's got to get the king out of danger. Once the king's out of danger, we can just win the knight. So check, Now notice, you don't take this knight with your knight, because then you'll take your queen. So you've got to take the knight with your queen. Okay. Alright, again, it's going to be an endgame problem. Again, our pawn is very far advanced, so we want to get this guy through. If we can get these two rooks off, black should be able to win this pawn endgame, even though white has got an extra pawn, purely because our pawn is so far advanced. So we can again do this remove a defender tactic. King takes. Now we control all these squares for the pawn to move to get to queen, so white cannot stop it. So we just advance. Okay, now our opponent's just taken this pawn, threatening our queen, threatening our rook, and also threatening the queen. Weird position. Let's see. Okay, so as they get harder, I'm going to think a little bit harder too. Alright, so I want to try and move this queen somewhere, creating a threat so that I can take the queen or capture something. So let's see. Alright, so white's got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. Black's got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. If I move my queen somewhere to attack the bishop, the queen has to stay on this line to defend the bishop. Okay, so this is actually a very simple one. It's not that difficult, but it is very hard to calculate, especially if you're a beginner. Alright, so here basically the idea is to take the queen. When white recaptures, we can capture here, threatening the rook and threatening the knight. So we're going to definitely gain material. So we can just simply capture the queen. Okay, alright, so if we take there, we'll gain 3 pieces, and he'll gain 3 pieces, so we take this one, and that's problem solved. Okay, this is a real simple, no, not so simple. Okay, so black's just moved his knight here, defending this square, otherwise this rook would come down, checkmate. So let's see, what can we do here? This knight's protecting that checkmate, and this knight's protecting that checkmate. How does this help us? Okay, so we always look for checks, captures, and threats. So first capture to look for is check. This king has got no squares to move, so you'd have to move the bishop, and then the queen can just take. So it's checkmate in 2 moves. Okay. Now here we've got to be very, very careful. You notice that we can take the queen over here on g6, but if we do that, notice this bishop's cutting across here, so our king can't move this way, and once this pawn is gone, then this file's open for this white rook, and white could actually checkmate. So in this position it would be a big mistake to take this queen. So now we've got to try and figure out how to get rid of this guy so we can actually take over there. or maybe do something else. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, so I'm looking at captures. Queen there. Okay, so I'm not too worried about queen takes pawn, king takes rook there, because I've still got king here. What about if I move here, threatening the rook? If it takes here, then I can take the queen. Even if it goes here, I've got queen back here. Rook takes, pawn takes. I should have extra pieces. Tricky, very tricky. If I move down, the rook just moves. I mean the queen just moves. If I move this rook here, then he's got queen there. I think this is a move, but I'm not 100% sure. Whenever you think you've got the answer, but you're not sure, always just double check. The nice thing about tactics is that if you've got the right answer, you'll know. You will know it's the right answer. Okay, let's go with this move. Because for me, it looks like I can stop the checkmate. Let's see. Yes. Okay. Now, do I take the queen or do I take the rook? Let's see. If I take there, he goes check. So if I take there, he goes check. I've got a block with the queen. He goes check, I take with a pawn, but then he's going to take my rook. So I first have to take this rook. Queen takes, okay, king takes, rook there, not scared. Just move here. Okay. Okay, so my queen's in danger. I've got this move, then the king just moves there, and then how do I continue? Also have this move, gaining a bishop. Also have this move. So the thing to do here is to count the pieces. So we've got 2 rooks versus 2 rooks. A bishop and a knight versus a bishop, knight and another bishop. 6 pawns versus 3 pawns. This looks like it might be one of those problems where you aim for a draw, which I don't really like much. Okay, let's see. Take, I'm going to take there, and knight here, rook moves, and then there. That doesn't really help much, so it's going to have to be this move. And just, whoa, oh, made a mistake there. Okay, alright, so we're threatening here, the king's open, so we can just move the queen there. Check, it's a double attack on the king and the knight. So check and win a piece. Okay, now here this queen has moved onto the same line as our queen. So if we could move this knight somewhere where it could attack this king, it would be check, and then we'd be able to take the queen. So white's got this clever idea of moving the bishop to h7 check. The black king has to move to h8. And then we've got knight takes f7, forking the king and the queen. Then we can take that queen. Okay. I'm noticing this guy's not protected. I'm not quite sure how to take advantage of it yet. I'm looking at queen e5, but then the rook can just move. Also looking at rook takes rook, queen takes, and then queen there. Doesn't seem to do anything either. Okay. Alright, so rook takes, queen takes. Then we play rook here. Now this queen that's on this square can't get off this line, because if it does, the rook is going to take on go to c8. Check the king, back rank weakness again. Rook moves down, rook takes, knight moves down, rook takes, checkmate. So black would maybe play something like queen takes knight, because that's protecting the rook, but then the rook still goes down here and with a checkmate. So let's see. Or you could take the rook. Okay, another endgame problem. Alright, so we want to get our pawn through. If we move our king here, he's just going to check from behind. So we want to try and move one square up, so when he goes check here, we can block with the rook. So that's got to be the move, and we just block. Alright. Now I'm noticing this king is cutting off the white king like this, so I'm looking at ideas of maybe moving the queen here, but he does have bishop down there. And the last move was here. Okay, so here's a very simple plan. I can just take with a double attack on the queen and the bishop. That's probably right. Let's go with that. Okay. Okay, so this pawn was moved here to defend the bishop. Now, if we maybe move this pawn up, like so, if he takes, we can take the bishop. If he doesn't, whoops. Okay, top. Okay. Okay, here we got a simple tactic. Bishop takes bishop, knight takes, and queen a4 with a double attack on the king and the knight. So check, check, and thank you. Okay, so I'm looking at check. King just moves to g8. Okay, so now I've noticed something else. This queen doesn't have many squares it can go. So instead of trying to go after the king, who's actually quite safe, we can go after this queen by moving the bishop here. And then she's trapped. Okay, let's give it a shot. Thanks for the queen. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be a knight fork. Alright, so we can check the king by moving our rook here. The only two squares this black king can move is there, if he does, the knight can go there, forking the king and the rook. The other option is the king can move there, and again the knight moves there, forking the king and forking the rook. And we've gained the rook. Alright. Now here we've got a very tricky little sneaky move. Okay. White can play his bishop to d4, where this pawn has now just moved to defend that square. Now why can the bishop move there? Because by moving here, we're attacking the queen and we're attacking the rook. So if he does something about the queen by, let's say for example, taking the bishop, then we can take this rook with check. Okay, take this rook with check. If he takes our rook first, then the bishop can just take the queen. I was wrong. Okay, well, at least we got to our little 31 problems, so I'm quite happy. Okay, so I suggest you guys do this every day. This is excellent practice for improving your chess. I normally just go through to see what I did wrong. This is great for your chess. If you can do this every day for at least a month or two and continue doing it, your chess will improve drastically. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is the first in the chess improvement series, and it's a tactics video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like, please subscribe, please share on Facebook. The more people, the better. I want to teach everybody how to play chess and how to play chess well. We're in this together. Let's do it. Till next time. Cheers everybody.